Reid with Valor. In this video, I'm going to show you how to get your rifle set up right from the factory, right when you bought it at the gun store. This is a Stag Arms here that I'm going to be using for my class demos, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to get it ready to shoot. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright guys, first thing you're going to want to do, make sure it's clear. Alright, so what I like to do is I'll break my rifle down like so, and you can pull the bolt back, and you can pull everything out just like this. The next thing you're going to have to do is break it down and take it apart. It'll split in half just like this. So I set that off to the side, and to make sure everything's good here, what I like to do also is take that buffer tube out. Your hammer is going to have to be down in order to get this buffer spring and buffer tube out. Alright, now what I like to do is break down the charging handle, right, or the bolt carrier group, excuse me. So what we're going to have to do is take out the firing pin retaining pin right here, put that in your charging handle, pop it down, pull your firing pin out just like this, and of course rotate the cam pin 90 degrees, pull it out, set it down, and then pull your bolt out just like this. Alright, now the rifle is disassembled. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take care of the bore. What I like to use for bore cleaning is wipe out. This will get everything clean. It'll strip away all the copper and anything else is in there. Now this rifle is brand new from Stag, brand new from the factory, so what I want to do is make sure I get all the grease out of the machining grease and anything else like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it a good healthy portion, let it settle down. So what I do is just spray it directly in there, and this is good because what this will do is this will clean out anything that's in there, any machining grease, anything crazy that's in there. I can even go from the other end. And I wait for it all to bubble out just like this. So I set that down and let this wipe out do its magic, and it will definitely do its magic. Alright, next what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a solvent of some type. I like Hoppy's number 9. This is my personal favorite. It's been my cologne since about mid-high school. Anybody that's been to my house or hung out with me any length of time says I am like permanently infused with the aroma of Hoppy's number 9. And that's a good thing because it's manly, it's nice and chemical. So what I'll do is I'll look at the bolt here, and I'll wipe this bolt down with some solvent. Now I know some of you guys are like, oh, Reid, wear gloves, you know, and all this and that. It's a free country. If I want to wear gloves, I will. I don't really want to wear gloves. I like the chemicals. If you guys listen to Creator, the band Creator, there's a song called Toxic Trace, and I'm a big fan of that song. Anyway, metal aside from the 80s, I'm just wiping down this bolt and checking it, make sure this is brand new bolt, so there's nothing crazy, but I do wipe it down with solvent. Definitely want to get the firing pin. The reason why we're wiping these parts down is because from the factory they have a bunch of machining oil and a bunch of other things. I mean, if you look at a rifle that comes brand new, they've got a lot of preservatives on there, and we want to knock these out before we fire our gun because we don't want to have the gun dirty and fire it that way. I like to have it clean and clear. Alright, when I clean the bolt carrier, I'm just going to wipe all this down here. I'm also looking at the gas key, and I'm looking at making sure that these are staked. It should be a little divot on either side of each screw that keeps the gas key nice and tight. So they do a good job on that. This thing's real firm. It's not going anywhere. I'm also cleaning it here. As you can see, guys, this is the last time this rifle will ever look like this, where there's no wear and tear on it, because the life of this rifle just changed when I bought it, because it's going to get put through the paces over the next year. There will be no more brand new parts on there. But I'm looking at it now and I'm appreciating it because it's not too often I get to see brand new stuff like this. So I'm wiping this down, wiping everything down, wiping all the oil, wiping down any of the preservatives that are in there. So you want to make sure that you're doing that. Alright, so the bolt and bolt carrier is done. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the lower receiver, put my thumb over the hammer, put it off safe, and always let the hammer ride forward under your thumb. We do not just want to let the hammer go forward. That's problematic. So I'm going to wipe out the magazine well, not that you need to from the factory. It's usually pretty clean, but I do it anyway. I'm going to get in here and underneath all these firing controls, all these nooks and crannies, make sure everything is nice and clean. Trigger here is just an old mil-spec trigger that they put in their guns. That's what I like to shoot. Real familiar with a mil-spec trigger. If you can't shoot a mil-spec trigger good, like, you guys need fundamentals. I think they're more than light enough and more than accurate enough. Just to get used to it. And if it's too gritty for you, you know what is a good trigger job? A few thousand rounds, a couple classes. That'll polish up that trigger real good. You don't need to buy craziness. So I'm going to go in there just like this, and I'm going to wipe out all those components. No problem there, we're good. Everything's all set. Now, that wipeout should have had a time to do its job. So I'm going to take this bore snake. You could also use a bore brush, or you could use a cleaning rod if you'd like to, but I kind of like these bore snakes here. And I'm going to drop this little weight into the chamber. And I'm going to make sure that I swab out the bore to start with, and then of course I will hit the chamber. Sometimes that wipeout takes time to dissolve, and that's good because it's doing its thing. I like the wipeout, guys, if you're going to clean your bore. I clean my bore every, several thousand rounds. I certainly don't clean my bore every time I shoot the rifle at all. But that's up to you if you want to do that or not. It's just an unnecessary step. It's an old throwback to the black powder days. We really don't need to do it with modern guns. Okay, so I pulled that out. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to look down it. Nice and clear. No grease, nothing. The chamber's real clear. But what I'm going to do anyway is I'm going to clean that chamber out. So what you'll need is a chamber brush. You can get these anywhere. You can get these any gun store or any kind of website. You're going to want a chamber brush and a handle like this. So I'm just going to get a little bit of solvent on there. No big deal. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this and I'm going to shove it in the chamber, and I'm going to do that a couple of times and make sure that I get it nice and smooth. And what I'm doing is cleaning that. All right, now once I've done that a few times, then I'll come back to the bore snake and I'll drop that down in there. The reason we want to knock out anything in that chamber, guys, is because if they used any tooling or if they used any kind of machine grease, we want to make sure that that's nice and smooth. If you guys ever find yourself getting stuck cases in your rifle, it's because your chamber's dirty. And that means you need to punch that a few times. So no big deal on that one, it's an easy fix. You could run it through 2 or 3 times, whatever your preference is. You don't need to get crazy with it. It's just going to get fouled up the first shot anyway. Alright, so we've got a clean chamber, clean upper. And what I can also do here is I can take my patch and I can swab out the internal channels here and make sure everything is clean, make sure everything is good the way it's supposed to be. So what I'm doing is I'm cleaning the inside of the upper receiver, as you can see right here. I'm making sure all that fluid, all that grease, packing material, whatever the preservative that they use from the factory comes out of there, and making sure everything's solid. I'm just pulling all that stuff out. Chamber should be clear. Yeah, it's pretty clean. As you can see, guys, there's not much on there, and I'm really trying to get in there. That's it there, boy. Get in there nice and deep like on dodgeball, right? The guy in his belly button. That's what I do to the chamber. So, all right, so we clean that out. Everything's good. So everything is hit with that number 9 solvent. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some dry patches here, and I'm going to use these dry patches, and I'm going to wipe everything off. I'm going to wipe everything down, get my bolt carrier nice and dry, because what I'm about to do is lube this up. I'm sure that I'll put so much lube on this rifle that some of you guys watching it will like put a warrant out for my arrest or something like that. But at the end of the day, you want a wet rifle. To quote my good friend Brian Wilkinson of Enhanced Defense, she'll run dirty, but she won't run dry. So I'd rather have a dirty and wet rifle than a dry and clean one any day of the week. So that's just how it goes. All right, wipe these parts down. I'm wiping everything with a dry patch, ladies and gentlemen. I really don't spend a whole lot of time on weapons maintenance, but I do make sure that I get the important stuff. As I've said in previous videos, if you're spending more than like 10 minutes cleaning your gun, it's wrong. I mean, you really don't need to spend that much time on it at all. Okay, wipe the firing pin down. No problem. I'm going to wipe the controls down, wipe the magazine well out, because I put some solvent in there. So whatever you put solvent on, just run a dry patch over. And if this video is going too fast for you, hit pause and maybe even the rewind button, and I bet you'll be able to pick up the information. So we make sure we knock all this stuff down. It's nice and dry, and the internals on here, this upper, I'm going to wipe make sure that's nice and white and dry. The dry patch. Make sure you get the chamber nice and dry. Yeah, everything's good here. This wipeout smells like Windex. It smells just exactly like if you'd spray a window with Windex. But though it does a good job on the bore. Okay, So everything is wiped dry. I've wiped everything off. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add lubrication. And the lubrication I really like here is a Slip 2000 EWL30, although you could use anything. I like something that stays put on the rifle. You know, there are certain lubes out there, you can lube it up and then shoot it that same day and they'll work great. But for a lot of us, you know, we use this rifle for home defense, or we'll use a rifle, we may lube it and put it away. We want something that's gonna stay on the rifle. So what I'll do is I'll lube inside here. I'll put a few drops inside the bolt carrier right here. Then what I'll do is I'll lube the bolt up like this. Yes, I'm using a lot. You should be able to see just how much lube that I'm using on this bolt. It's a visible, thicker layer on the bolt. You can see just how wet that bolt is, and that's fine. The rifle, if it doesn't need the lube, will throw off the excess lube, guys. Like, you don't have to worry about over lubing your rifle. If it doesn't need it, it will throw it off. And then I get the cam pin here. I make sure that that's nice and slick as well. So then we push that in, turn it 90 degrees, pull the bolt out. Firing pin, you can run it dry or you can do a light coat, no problem there. It's not going to hurt it if you put a little bit of oil in there, but not much. Watch me carefully. You put this together, see the firing pin, push it straight down like this. Make sure that it's all the way down, because if not, it will not capture it. Take your firing pin, retaining pin, shove it all the way in here like this. Now what I like to do to test this is I'll pop it like this, whip it out like that. Everything should stay put. So hit it and whip it out like that, and the firing pin should stay in there. In this case, the firing pin does stay in there. Now what I'll do is I will take the lube and run it on the rails of the bolt carrier. Just like this. And just like this, no problem. I have a nice visible layer of lubrication in there, guys. And what you can also do if you want to rub it in. It's not going to hurt the bolt carrier to do that. So that's what I like to do on my bolt carrier. That's how I lube that bolt carrier. You can see just how wet that bolt carrier is. It should have a nice thick sheen of lubrication on it, and it's not going to hurt it. As far as the lower receiver, what I like to do is get the sear in there. And so what I'll do is I'll drop a couple of drops in there, and I'll get some on the disconnector, get some just underneath the hammer. This is very important right here. The safety, we also need to lube that. So what I'll do is I'll lube the safety, flip it back on, and then lube it some more. Guys, I knew a guy in the jungle. We were out in the jungle for like 6 weeks, and this guy did not lube his safety, and it rusted shut. So he wasn't able to get his rifle on fire. So he had some issues. So what we do here is we'll grab a little bit of drops inside the upper receiver. You can rub that in with your finger, run it along the inside rails, run it along the inside just like so, and everything's good in our world right now. Charging handle. What I like to do is add a couple of drops on the inside channel. And this is just will help you charge the weapon a lot better. It'll just make it smoother. Rather than real gritty, it'll help make it nice and smooth. Or as my buddy JJ likes to say, nice and smooth. Alright, so put that charging handle on the inside there. And from here, I can put my bolt carrier back inside. Shove it in there. There's your dust cover. No problem. Now this is just me, and this is what I like to do is I'll put a little bit of on my palm right here, and I'll take this spring and I'll lube up that spring just like so. And what this will help do is help the buffer spring. It'll help it slide a little bit easier inside here, and so it won't be as gritty. If you've ever pulling your bolt back, or if you ever charge the weapon and you're hearing that sound, you probably need a little bit of lube on there. It's not necessary. I just like it because it helps smooth things out quite a bit. All right, now we're ready to put the rifle back together again. And when I put this back together, snap it in. And then of course this one of them is usually pretty difficult to get in there. So what we can do is we can take something and just, there we go, nice. Now time to function check. Charge the rifle, put it on safe, try to shoot. Shouldn't shoot, should be on safe, so it should not fire. Weapon on fire, pull and hold the trigger to the rear. Rack it again, let it out. Should hear a clunk. Pull the trigger, hold it back again. Rack it, let it out. Should clunk. Weapon on safe, dust cover closed, and your function check is complete. Now on this rifle, I've decided to use iron sights on here. So this is what came with the rifle. This carrying handle here is what came with the rifle. So what I'm going to do here is, because it's got screws on it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some blue Loctite on these threads so that it stays put. So guys, if anything screws onto your rifle, you want to have blue Loctite on it, okay? So we're going to put this on the rifle. and we're going to make sure that everything's working the way that it's supposed to. I like blue Loctite because everything stays put when we do that. So we will put the rifle here, screw it down nice and tight. What I'm also doing is pushing slightly forward on this so that it'll sit against the pick rail, against the front of the pick rail. I'm pushing forward on that to make sure that any free play is taken out of that sight. So I'm pushing forward and I'm really cranking it down finger tight to start with. And then from here what I can do is I can add the screwdriver and I can really get these screws in there as tight as I really want to. We don't need to like Hulk Hogan them down tight, but we definitely want it tight enough to where you can't really move it with your hands. There we go. That should be plenty tight enough. And so what we've got now, ladies and gentlemen, is a clean, lubricated rifle that is ready to have its first rounds fired through it. That also is lubricated to the degree where I probably won't have to add lube for at least 1,000 rounds, maybe more. I've gone up to 6,000, 7,000 rounds without adding lube sometimes. So I wouldn't recommend that you do that. I just did it to see how long some of this stuff will last. That Slip 2000 lasts a pretty long time. So I'm gonna go out to the range and zero this, but that's the video on how to get your rifle ready to go from the factory or when you get it for the first time. Alright guys, that's how you get your rifle ready to go straight from the factory. I know you got a lot of new gun owners out there and a lot of people that are buying ARs for the first time. So that's how I would do it. You probably just don't want to go out and shoot it. You want to make sure that it's clean and lubricated and ready to go. And of course then we need to go zero it. I've got videos on how to zero your rifle. If you check my playlist there, you can see videos on how to zero your AR-15. If you found the information in the video helpful, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Facebook. That link is down below. And if you want to learn how to use your rifle and use it effectively, come on out to Valor Ridge and we can spool you up in quick order. This is Reid Henrichs with Valor Ridge reminding you the lessons that we learn are written on the tombstones of others. We'll see you on the ridge.